Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Gray here. Welcome back to another stream. And today we're going to be talking about why everything just feels so expensive. I've been thinking about this, like I've been writing this one specifically for a little while now, because everything is just the costs just way higher than it used to be. And I hear a lot of people saying like back in my day, you could work two jobs and that's how everyone got ahead. And now it feels like you have to work two jobs just to stay afloat. And you got to have a side hustle or else you're not going to make it. Stuff like that. So I've noticed that there's a little bit of back and forth, and I wanted to react to some content and see what other people are thinking in the area on YouTube, and then also just talking about ways that we can improve on this area, why it feels so bad, what it's doing to people, what we can actually do, even when it might feel hopeless, and then just kind of open it up to talk. So that's going to be the stream here. I'm going to give a second for everything to load up, and then we should be good to get rolling. I'm going to just end up reacting to a little bit of content to start off, just because I am pretty intrigued by a lot of the stuff that people say, specifically on the internet, about how they feel on this subject, because everything feels so expensive, and justifiably so. Wants nowadays are to the point where wants are now cheaper than they've ever been. TVs, fast food, comparative to the income. And so now we're at the point where even when fast food's going up a little bit, you can get a TV for $500, but a house is 500,000, where it used to be, in order to get a house, it's 80,000, but but a TV was like 7,000. So it was, like, I don't know. There's a lot to talk about here. Again, as I said, I'll give everyone kind of a second to hop in here real fast, and then we'll get going. But let's see my channel. And also, if you guys are new here, consider subscribing. We've been trying to hit 500 subscribers. That's our goal right now. And that's kind of where we're at. Let me see here. I wish I could play music in the background of these streams. I got a copyright claim on the last one that I did, and I was like, dang, now I can't play music on the background, and it's kind of a subscribe. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Let's see. Allow. Link. Let's see here. There we go. Now that's uploading. All right. So yeah, we're gonna start off here, kind of why it feels so bad right now. I know that rent and housing prices are higher than they've ever been, especially for first-time home buyers. You know, I was looking at houses the other day of just stuff that maybe we'd want to look into getting, and it's crazy. It's in order to get a reasonable house that you're not going to have to immediately change and upgrade, and you're only going to live in it for a few years because your entire situation could change, and then you have to buy something completely new. It's at least 250 to 300,000 on the low end, and that's kind of a fixer upper. That's kind of and then on top of that, you've got rent. We've considered moving out of our current place, but there is just we're not exactly hurting on the income side, and it's still considerably unreasonable to move out and move into a nicer place, or even just a different place. Specifically in our town, we're looking at, we're 413 at a 500 sub goal. Let's go. Yeah, we're looking at like, I don't know, like the average in Tyler, I believe, is 1,400 for a 2-bedroom, and I'm like, that's way higher than what we pay, and then it doesn't include bills and utilities and stuff unlike ours. So let me see here. So, and then on top of that, childcare is a big thing. I did want to touch on that. For a lot of people, if you're married or like dating and you have a kid, there is a level of either do one of you stay home and stay with the kid, or does one of you go get a job and then cover the cost of healthcare, because you have to outpace the cost of the healthcare. And so we'll talk about a few other things in this video, or in this live stream here. But to start, I want to go ahead and pull up a video. Let me see.
I've been a longtime fan of.
Oh, have you now? Let's see. Let me go ahead and pull this video up. And we're just going to go ahead and react to it. I'm on. All right. So it's about 16 minutes. We're just going to kind of react to it. I'll pause it as we go. But let me see here. Streaming. Can I move my face cam? Theater mode. I don't know how to do this. I mean, I can. Hold on. Wait. There we go. All right. Okay, I'll just make it full screen. There we go. Okay. Let's see.
These landlords have lost their everlasting mind. We have been living in this house for 2 years since relocating from South Florida. Faithful with our rent, paying on time. I don't ask for any maintenance because my husband was a maintenance supervisor and he's an HVAC technician. I'm hooked up. We get the renewal, and with all their bogus fees and all, they want to charge us $3,000
Cost of living is way too high.
I don't know how to feel about. I don't even know what I just wanted. $3,000 for what? 1.6K average rent for 2-bedroom plus bills in Tyler, Texas. Yeah, and that's compared to. I mean, I've talked about it in one of my last live streams. I did like our rent currently is $1,250, and that's all bills paid and internet. So it's definitely a blessed living situation. But we were considering trying to find like another place to live, and there's just no like concept. And that $1,250 is already creeping up on that 30%. And the rule used to be 25% or less of your income goes to your housing, and what it should be is 25 to 30%. But that should be every housing cost. You know, it's every, all utilities, all household bills, whatever it takes to keep a roof over your head and manage your house should be under 30%. And it's increasingly getting harder, I think, for a lot of people to actually achieve that. And so, yeah, we'll continue with this video, but $3,000, I guess I zoned out. For what? What are you paying $3,000 for? But
this guy is making $65,000 a year. Pretty good, and still broke. Doesn't understand how that is even possible, and it's basically living paycheck to paycheck. 65K.
That term, the paycheck to paycheck, that always gets me, because technically everyone is paycheck to paycheck. I mean, you wait for the money to come in to spend it if you want to build. I mean, it's just, that's the term itself, is you are genuinely sitting there waiting for your check to come in so you can afford to pay the bills without having to pull from savings or whatever else you're doing. But I do think it's a big problem, I think, for a lot of people. But I also think it's not as bad as it's because there's a lot of fear mongering, I think, of everyone's trying to convince everyone else that it's so bad out here that we're living. We have to go into insane amounts of debt because we can't balance this. I mean, some of it I understand. I think for some people it makes sense that they're literally like, I have no food, I have nothing to eat. I'm having to just kind of get by for a few days until my next check hits. But I think part of it is just specifically budgeting. I mean, it depends on your income and your situation. I think that's really what it is. Because if I can look at your budget and look at your spending habits, and I can specifically see that literally you're not eating out, you're not, buying video games, you're not going to the movies, you're not, door dashing stuff to your house and then after paying it. Like, if you genuinely are just paying bills to survive and you are struggling to get to that next one, that I think is what paycheck to paycheck means. And I don't think a lot of us are, myself included. I'm not paycheck to paycheck. It can feel that way. It can feel that I'm waiting for that next check to come in, but that's by my own volition 95% of the time. I'm not, I either spent money on fast food, or I spent money on entertainment, or I spent money in other areas. So I don't know. I need to see the actual finance side of this to actually see, why are you paycheck to paycheck? Is your spending out of control, or are you genuinely behind?
A year is honestly a really good salary, and after taxes, the take home is honestly pretty decent. But when rent is 1,500, your car payment's 500, and groceries.
That's actually a good point. Um, People nowadays, I've noticed the car category, in my opinion, should not be above 10%. The lower you can get it, the better. And that should include gas and car insurance and everything. And I might be out of touch for that. Mine isn't below 10%, but that's my goal, is to get it to where it's 10% or less of my income. And but I'm noticing that the car payment thing is what's really throwing me off here. I don't have a car payment. I've never had a car payment. I refuse to get one. And I understand that there might be a world where I get pushed into it because life just throws curveballs and maybe I do genuinely need a vehicle. But there's just something to be said of, if in the good times you're setting money aside for the bad times, it will make it to where it's actually possible for you to just afford a car straight up outright. It's not going to be a brand new one. It's not going to be a Tesla or anything like that. But you will be in a spot, hopefully, if you do it correctly, you will be in a spot where you can just buy a car in cash. And it might be a terrible car. It might be a fixer-upper. You might need to do some repairs and maintenance and that kind of stuff. But, or even just taking a small loan out on it. There's the money guy rule, which I've talked about on this channel before, is if you keep it below 8% of your income, you do 20% as a down payment, and you do less than 3 years, you will have an affordable car payment. And it's not this $500 a month for 72 months. I know it just came out that they have a 10-year car payment plan, 120 months, which that's crazy. To have a multi-$100 car payment for hundreds of months is insane. But that's just one thing where maybe that's part of the reason we're feeling paycheck to paycheck, is because we're driving around in a car that we can't afford.
And food is hitting $500-$600, and then also other stuff that are a few $100 for entertainment. You're not really left with much. And when 80% of Americans now consider fast food as a freaking luxury item, that doesn't
I mean, yeah, it kind of is. I mean, for me, I've noticed that when I go out to fast food now, I'm mostly disappointed almost every time. Sometimes I enjoy the convenience of it, but like you go to Chipotle and it's $15 and you're like, this isn't worth $15. Like it is, because somebody paid for it. I paid for it. But it's also not. Like, I don't feel good spending that. I would rather go to the grocery store and I could get triple the food and it's still come in under $15.
exactly help. I don't really want to spend $18 for a Big Mac. I don't really want to go to
Okay, Big Macs aren't $18. Calm down.
Shake Shack and spend $20. I don't want to spend this much money. Even Dollar Tree is like $1.75. Is it really a Dollar Tree? More like double Dollar Tree. And so far, rent prices just keep rising. I think the biggest gripe with this is going to be grocery prices, entertainment prices, and especially rent prices. Rent prices keep going up as inflation is pretty high. Inventory is low. When loans are expensive, like right now, many developers don't exactly want to build units. There is a huge...
Yeah, and I mean, that's something to be said, is the fact that they keep rising because there is low inventory, and I think it will get worse. We have been called Gen Z, and now, what's the new generation, Lauren? What's the new generation?
Like the one our baby's gonna be?
Yeah.
Gen Beta.
Gen Beta?
I think. I've only heard that.
Is the one between us Gen Alpha? Is there no...
Yeah, Gen Z, and then it went back around and it went to Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha? Okay.
It will be Gen Beta.
Well, Gen Alpha and Gen Beta, and then a little bit of Gen Z, were considered the renting generation, because getting into a home for most people is out of touch at this point. And I think there's ways to do it. I don't want to be a fearmonger and say you cannot, like, there's no way we're ever going to get in the house, you might as well just accept it. And then you get scared that you're always going to be renting forever. I think there are ways, if that is important to you, to get into a house. You have to understand the costs associated with it. I did a video a while back of, should you put into your retirement or your housing? And I kind of want to remake that video, because life's changed. That was about 2 years ago. Life's changed now. Like, are we saying we need to, are we saying that we need to put money into retirement and get an actual return of 6 to 10% a year, or 7 to 10% a year? Or are we saying we want to put money into the house, which is typically like 2.5% a year, even though rent's going up 3.2%? And there's a lot going on, and the housing costs alone for a lot of Americans is what's causing us, I think, to struggle financially. It's because we're in a house we just can't afford, or we're having to really, really work to afford it.
Housing shortage here in America. And this is one of the reasons why cost of living is so high. Because rent and mortgages and stuff like that take up the bulk majority of someone's income. And when you're paying so much money for rent, you don't really have that much money. And then now you go to McDonald's and you spend $15, that also hurts. And then when you go get a beer or do some entertainment, it's also like mighty expensive. I mean, you got people making $65K a year, which is honestly a decent salary.
Getting all your daily nutrients is hard work. But nutrition gaps in your diet are inevitable.
Ads are weird.
But
It's nothing now. You still feel broke. Now, $65K a year back in like 2017, 2018 was actually really good. You could live pretty comfortably back then, but not anymore. Even in cities that are a lot smaller than the coastal cities are still expensive. Places like...
Yeah, but I mean, part of where you're living is going to, of course, impact how much everything costs. So, I mean, if you're living in a coastal city or a major city or anything like that, you might just consider, like, there is something to be said of tank the cost of moving and move to a more reasonable place. For example, I live in Tyler, but I work in Longview. So like, I'm not here. I'm working in a different city that offers me a different amount. And so I think for a lot of people, they're living in these cities, they're living in Dallas, for example, and you go to Dallas and the immediate starting salary at, I was looking at Altered State last time I was there. $22 is the starting salary or something around there for Altered State. That's great. But then you consider the cost of living is triple compared to where I'm at. It doesn't keep up. Like the cost, we're paying people $12 an hour here, but our rent comparatively is a lot more affordable. So, I mean, I would just consider that is the fact of, if you're living in like a state like California, you might, it's difficult because maybe a family there, maybe you grew up there. It's difficult, but you have to consider the cost of what you're doing. If you're taxed 53%, and then on top of that, your income is not standing up to what you need to survive, and then housing prices I would be impressed if you found something under $1 million in LA. And it's going to be, a cardboard box, and it's going to be $999,000. But to find something that is affordable, if you really want that for your life, you should consider moving somewhere. I mean, I've even considered just moving to a different town if I was to buy a house in East Texas, just based on the fact that smaller towns are going to be more affordable. A $200,000 house in Tyler is not equal to a $200,000 house in Athens or in Arp or some smaller town comparatively.
Like the Midwest is also getting very pricey, and $65K just isn't going to cut it anymore. Check out some of these videos of high cost of living.
Since when did Jack in the Box become so expensive? This used to be 2 for $4.
Teeth is very white.
Breakfast croissant. Now it's $8.
I have a new fixation now on his teeth.
This is $8, just the sandwich.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of it, is the fact that, like, that's what I'm saying. He could make that sandwich for, I'm betting you, $1, like maybe $1.50. So he could have like 4 sandwiches in that, and for that same price.
It. No drink, no sides. $8 for fast food. What happened? $8.
That bite was $2. Like, if you just look how much he took, that was $2 right there.
Doesn't even hit the same anymore.
Yeah.
America, what happened? Why are the prices so expensive? And $8 in Japan.
I mean, you're not entitled to the fast food side of it. I do think I mean, it's a luxury technically at the end of the day. Even back in the day, it was a luxury.
And I could get like a full-on like 5-course meal, freshly made by a chef.
I do consider this. How do we remember the past? Because I know we look back on it with like rose-colored glasses, but I don't remember a time where you could spend $15 and it'd be like a nice restaurant. I remember $15 was me and my brother getting McDonald's. Like, it wasn't. That's just what it was. Like, it wasn't. And now it's $22 or $25 for, me and Lauren got DQ the other day and it was like $30. Like, that's a lot more, but also it was never as cheap as I remember it. Maybe the dollar menu. Rest in peace, the dollar menu, man.
The egg is kind of green. Why is it green? I think I'm over fast food. There's no point, is it? It's not affordable anymore. Fast food used to be the go-to spot because it was affordable. Now it's not.
Okay, McDonald's, I think it's time we had a chat about your little identity crisis. You are not fancy food. You are supposed to be the cheap fast food option. Higher prices should equal higher quality. You're not serving gourmet burgers.
Well, okay. Part of it is the cost of everything. I mean, if as a fast food worker, right? If as a fast food worker you want to be paid $15 to $20 an hour, somebody has to pay that. Like, just outright, somebody has to cover that cost, so it will be pushed on. And so we want people in that position to be able to afford to live, but we don't want to pay them to actually afford to live. So it's this balancing act for companies of, since COVID, supply chain issues, cost of goods going up, cost of food going up. And then, I mean, now, like, just at the grocery store where I'm at, ground beef has gone from like $4.90 to $6.50 in less than a year. And that's insane to me. So if that's on a consumer side, if that's the cost change, I can only imagine what the costs are looking like for a big chain like McDonald's, where they're having to buy thousands of pounds of it at a time. I'm just kidding. They 3D print their meat, but you get my example.
I'm coming there because you've got my kid hooked on your chicken nuggets, but let's face it, they like the chicken nuggets.
Nah, those aren't chicken nuggets. I don't believe her.
It's because they're plain and they don't taste like anything.
So you have to fix something. Either increase the quality of your food to match these new high prices or lower the prices, please.
I used to thoroughly enjoy getting a coffee, going to the grocery store, perusing the aisles. I cannot stand the grocery store anymore.
This is interesting because groceries nowadays, I've seen so many people, they're like, groceries are just so expensive. They're out of control. It's so expensive, it's out of control. I can't afford it. And then I ask them where they're shopping, and it's Whole Foods and Sprouts and Fresh and all these, all these expensive places. And I'm like, I shop at Walmart, almost exclusively Walmart. Even going to Target for groceries nowadays is so expensive comparative to affordable places like Walmart or Aldi's or Kroger. So in Texas, we have a local chain called Brookshire Brothers, however you say it. And they're twice as expensive as Walmart. It's insane. So I just don't shop there. I might get gas there, but I don't shop there at all because I just can't justify it in my head. And this is one of those things I was talking about in one of my last videos is if you are looking to save money, one of the first places you can go is your food, the stuff you're eating. If you're cooking at home, maybe, and the excuse I don't have time, it's the same thing as I was saying, paycheck to paycheck. I just don't believe people anymore on that. I think you have time. You just don't want to make time, and that's okay. If you just say I don't want to make time, I would actually respect you more than if you said I don't have time to cook at home.
I have went to 3 places this morning. I've went to Walmart, to Meijer, to Aldi to try to save money, get the best deals, and the only meat I got was ribs and chicken, and I probably spent
Ribs and chicken? And the chicken, you had us on chicken. That's affordable. But ribs?
upwards of $400 for 2 weeks worth of groceries, and that's the only meat I have in my little bags. Like, I don't have many bags back there, and I'm waiting.
Okay,
on
so
Myers.
she's shopping at Aldi.
But why is stuff still so expensive? I don't understand. It just make sense.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy.
Oh yeah.
I look forward.
Okay, so I have a question. For all those lovely individuals that live in major cities where your rent is up there. So I started looking for an apartment. I haven't lived in an apartment for a couple of years. Live with a best friend. Time to move out. Whole 9 yards. Anyway, I'm trying to stay pretty much within the scopes of where the places I have to drive for work. Y'all, rent is over, like on average, almost $2,000. Why? Why am I paying almost $2,000? Well, not even almost. It is. It's over $2,000. Even for 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 3 bedrooms. Like, what? If it's in the city, and I'm talking about over $2,000 for small apartments.
Yeah, I know that like my parents, they told me that when they moved out, it was the two of them and they were both working and their rent was like 500, 600 if I remember right. And they like, I don't know their income comparative to that time, but I just know rent is getting to the point where incomes are not keeping up. And there are things you can do. I mean, I don't know this person's life. I don't know if she has kids or family or if she's trying to have a roommate or something. But 3-bedroom, like, yes, you're going to pay over $2,000. I would need to know your life, but also maybe get like there's solutions to it, but at the same time, yes, I know it's very hard.
We're talking about maybe
to do
a
that.
little over 1,000 square feet. Now let me tell you, with the job that I do, I learned about square footage. I worked a couple of places where you learn square footage, what it looks like, you know, how rooms section off, because you got to figure out how much you need, all that good stuff. So I've learned how to look at an apartment, look at the square footage, like can, you know, will that or will not work for me. I don't want to do $2,000. I don't want to do over $2,000 for rent. And then you got the extra fees. I went and looked at one today. Beautiful complex, getting remodeled, the whole 9 yards. The 2-bedroom, 2-bath was maybe 1,100 square feet, give or take. $1,769 plus another $80 fee for pest control.
That's something. The fees on apartments nowadays is just crazy to me. Like the paying the fees, both application fees, paying, you know, like pest fees, trash fees, internet fees, pet fees, like that's insane. And then like if you're a day late, they charge you more fees. If you pay early, I've seen I had a friend who got actually charged a fee for paying early, and she never did it again because that's stupid. Like there's just why? Like I understand application fees to an extent because you're paying for the actual, you know, you're paying for somebody to apply. Like you're that's a process. The background check, the income check, the credit check, stuff like that. That takes time and money and people. So I understand that. I will say we were applying to apartments the other day, and it was $550 to put in an application with this place. It was $100 per person, and there's 2 of us because they run credit checks and background checks and all that on both of you, and a $350 deposit on the actual, like, if you want a 2-bedroom. It is non-refundable to my knowledge. So $550 just to ask this poor landlord, please, I beg you, please let me in this apartment, because now I've sunk $550. That's half my rent. Like that's a stupid amount of money. But
valet, trash, something else. But I'm just like, okay, so that's $1,800 for the rent, give or take, for 1,100 square feet. Okay. Now down the street, they have some different complexes again. 2-bedroom, 1-bath, $1,800. There's some up the street, 1-bedroom, starting off at $1,800. I know. What do y'all do for work that you're just like, oh, $2,000. Drop it. Okay.
Technically, you need to be making at least like $7,000, at least. So, in order for that to be reasonable, 7 to 8 grand net. So that's an insane amount.
Because let me tell you now.
I would say if you're in a 2-bedroom though, or two or 3 bedroom, get you some roommates. Again, I don't know her life. Maybe she's got kids. Maybe she's got a family. Maybe she, has a high income compared to it, and just 2K just seems like a lot because it would be a lot to anybody. But there is a level of like, if there's 2 of you can work. If there's 3 of you can work. Or if you're in a situation where you can't, you need to consider the fact that maybe you just can't afford to be in that place. As unfair as it is, I want to acknowledge it is unfair to be in a situation like that. Like, it shouldn't be this difficult, but it is, if that makes sense. Oh, my bad.
It's not the fact that I can't afford it, because I can. That's not the problem. The problem is I just don't want to.
All right. Well, yes. I mean, I don't want to either. It hurts to pay $15,000 a year in rent, but I need a place to live. What do you mean?
I don't want to spend over $2,000 on an apartment that's this big. Like, I am not small. I need my space. I have things I like to do. Every now and again, I like to entertain. If I can do that in a place this big, and I'm paying over $2,000.
Yeah, I mean,
some of the other ones I found a little bit more on the outskirts, so it's going to add some drive time. However,
that's another thing, is if you're paying for a place that is near where you, like, I drive an hour round trip every day that I work. 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. I could live closer to work. I would pay more rent. So it's kind of a cost of, if you live closer to work, you'd be typically in more of a city. Most people live, if they're working, are in some type of city or business or something. You're going to end up paying either more in rent or you pay less in rent. My aunt, for the longest time, I think she worked in Tyler, but she rented in a little small city outside of Tyler. And the rent was like 30% less, but she had to spend the majority of that on gas and wear and tear on her car just to get to work. So there is, it's a balancing act there of, if you can find that sweet spot of a reasonable commute on top of reasonable prices for gas and maintenance on your car and stuff like that, and then also saving money on rent. And it takes a lot of research, takes a lot of time. Just like finding a job, you need to be applying to apartments as much as you can, researching them. If you can get somebody to refer you, I've noticed that really, really helps, is if you know somebody in the apartment complex, if they've been a good tenant, they can refer you. And then just being willing to, have that savings and just understand, I'm going to have to put some money up into this, but and find somewhere you can stay for a while. There's some things you just can't know going into it, and I totally understand that. But, like, I've lived in this house for 3 years in a different way. Like, I used to live in the smaller apartment. Now I'm in a bigger one. But, it's been 2 years now that I've lived on this house. So, like, and I plan on living here for a while longer. So, I'm getting my value out of it. I'm not just, like, hopping from apartment to apartment every 6 months.
And not in the... one of them or two of them, I'm not in the best of neighborhoods. Not doing that. So I'm not going to sacrifice my safety for paying less rent. Plus I have to, my bike will be sitting outside, and trust me, we will fight. If you fool around with my motorcycle, we're going to have problems. We'll catch these hands or whatever.
Yo, I'm going to play World of Warships. I'm going to do it on stream.
Y'all answer me that. How we doing out here with $2,000 for rent? If it's 2 of you in one spot and you're doing it, cool. You can split in half.
I will say DINK, double income, no kids, is the strat. Like, if you're trying to get ahead, that was fun. I think that really put us in a good spot.
We do it. However, I'm doing this by myself. So again,
Okay.
It's not that I can't afford it. I just don't want to do $2,000 for something this big. Like, just throws my mind of...
We can't have everything we want. That was all. That's literally it. I can't, like, there's just nothing I can do there. If you want a bigger place, you got to pay for it, or buy a house. Like, you have to sacrifice in some way to get what you want. If you want a big place, you have to sacrifice. It's always been that way. The amount you're sacrificing is unfair, yes, but what can we do about that?
Being able to, having to pay that much to live in something that's teeny tiny. I lived in Florida for a bit. My last apartment there, 1450 square feet, which is actually pretty good. You know, for me, walk in, laundry room, playing space for dining room, open floor plan, 3 bedrooms, walk-in closet, patio, the whole 9 yards. Beautiful, loved it. Affordable, all the things. I made less then than I do now, and it was fine. So I'm just like, can I get that up here? Because this is ridiculous. So that's why I asked the question, where are you finding these places? Anybody in that area where it's, you know, nice, but it's not going to cost me?
The way I found my place, literally, it's just a numbers game. You just look the whole time. It's like dating. Date everyone. I'm just kidding. But, like, it's literally a numbers game when finding an apartment. Your main goal is literally just get in front of as many, like, you know, rent. What's it called? Rent. The leasing agent. Get in front of as many of those as you can. Be willing to walk up to random apartment buildings, drive around your town, and just look them up. Spend days doing it. I mean, it's work. I understand that. You don't have to do it every single year, though. You can just do it once, find a very good spot, put in the work, find the spot, and then stay there for a bit. You don't have to keep hopping around. If that's your life, then that's the cost of doing it. But, yeah.
Arm and leg, and possibly the other leg to stay there. Just saying. Yeah. What are y'all doing?
My best.
Dollar Tree, y'all got one more time to go up on these prices, because no, what is this? Why is this $1.50? It's supposed to be my sweet, cheap escape, okay? Now, it's already bad enough. I already have an emergency dollar in my pocket. Then I had to find a quarter to put with that emergency dollar. Now I gotta find another quarter? Dollar Tree, we about to square up. Go up on them prices one more time.
Please help me understand why fast food is so freaking expensive. I got a number 3 bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit meal, and it is $11 and something cents. What the fuck? And not everybody gets paid $16 an hour. Where I'm from, it's $7.25. Can you freaking believe this?
Where do you live? I'm not naive enough to say it doesn't exist, but like $7.25 is the federal minimum wage. It's most places don't pay that, and it also is not prominent. I'm just saying. I would say also, you got an orange juice. Everyone knows McDonald's orange juice sucks. And secondly, it's you're not entitled to fast food. You are paying for the convenience of it. You are paying for the situation that is it. It feels like it shouldn't be considered a luxury because we've just grown up in a culture where every single corner, there's hundreds of restaurants in fast food. Like, driving just down Broadway in Tyler literally is just hundreds of restaurants that you can just swing in and get food. And it costs so much. But it's just, yeah, you're not entitled to this. And my thing is, she could make this. Like, the amount of time it takes you to get in your car, drive to a McDonald's, order, wait in that line, sit there. I would also say if you did the app, this is another thing that I notice places like this are doing. Apps make this so much more affordable. It makes this make so much more sense because you can do like a biscuit. You can abuse it a little bit. You can do like a biscuit for $1 or $1.50 now, and then you can get a drink and a free hash brown if you like wait 15 minutes and go back through. Again, a little extra work, but if you want the convenience of just being able to pull up and order and get your food like that, then you're gonna pay for it. Like, there's no way around that. And you are the other thing is businesses are willing to charge this because people are spending it. If every person or most people stopped going to McDonald's, and we're experiencing this, right? McDonald's just had, I think, some of their lowest. What is it? Let me look. Let me see real quick.
I am not.
McDonald's. Profit growth this year. Full year net income for 2024 was down slightly compared to 2023. Global comparable sales decreased by 1%. So yeah, it looks like the company as a whole is starting to go down in revenue. And that's probably because they've raised their prices. They're paying their people more, they're being charged more for goods and services, and so they're having to spend more. And that then cost is being pushed back onto the customer to keep up with it, and so people are not going as much. So, yeah.
I'm not gonna do this ever again. That is insane.
So I just got McDonald's breakfast. I'm not
Guys, these people keep mentioning McDonald's, and I'm getting so hungry.
home, so I can't make my own breakfast. Don't get it a lot, but I just realized I paid about $10 for 2 sandwiches and a hash brown. Why is the hash brown almost the same price as the sandwich? I basically paid $3 an item. And the thing about that is that the sandwich, I know it cost them about $1, $1.20 to cook before labor costs, but the hash brown, a spud, costs like 10 cents.
No, it's more than that.
It used to be cheap, starchy carbs. It used to be. Now they justify charging $3 for a medium fry or for a hash brown because they give you less margin, or they take less margin on their sandwiches. Same thing with their sodas, you know, oh yeah, $1 soda, but it costs you like 32 cents in syrup and soda cups. Like, be real. That's dumb.
Come with me to go.
Yeah, but there's so many phantom costs of the business. I mean, he completely ignored labor costs, which I can tell you they're spending a freaking $1,000 an hour, at least, just in labor costs of, paying every employee there $15. The manager gets a pretty big cut. The assistant manager gets a pretty big cut. The store owner gets a pretty big cut. And then on top of that, you're also not constituted, like, marketing fees and services and taxes and real estate fees and property taxes and income tax and, like, all these big costs that maybe the product itself was 32 cents, but you just ignored entire thing, which is why they're seeing their razor thin margins.
Grocery shopping after not grocery shopping for my house for probably almost a month.
Celebrate Paleo Valley's.
No, I don't want to.
I hate this place. Well, recording yourself in public is super fucking awkward, so I couldn't do it.
I agree.
But I spent $400 at Walmart.
Uh-huh.
And then before I went to Walmart, I went to Costco and spent another $400. So,
yeah, but what are you getting? Like, show me the receipt.
Do anything for the rest of the month because I'm poor.
Dear politicians,
She didn't show the receipt. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, show me the receipt. Show me what you got at Walmart that was so expensive. Because, yes, the costs are higher. But also, are you being smart about it? Are you making conscious decisions with your money to actually choose the things that you can't afford? If you make $3,000 a month and you spend $800 on food, yeah, you can't afford that. But also, do you need $800 of food? Is this an income problem or is this a spending problem?
got a message. I hope the right one hear this. And I know I speak for everybody when I say this. Stop building affordable fucking housing. Stop. Because in order to live there, you gotta wait for 10 fucking years and you gotta make $5 a fucking month just to fucking make it. And you gotta stay broke, basically. So, if we could go back to where rent and mortgage is fucking affordable, then we wouldn't need that shit in the fucking first place.
I apologize for the
Stop building those fucking places.
Or
I don't know about anybody else,
vulgar.
but for 2025, I'm locking in on my apartment. Okay, I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying home. I'm tired of paying these high prices rent. I'm over it. I'm locking in my place. That's it. I will make a gym in a little corner somewhere. I will read. I will watch me 1,000 movies before I continue to go outside. There's nothing
I know she's being sarcastic, but like,
outside for me. I'm tired of paying
if you're living the life you can't afford, then build the life that you want to afford.
rent. I'm over it. Then they got the nerve to go up 4% every year.
Yeah, that is kind of stupid. Like, I've noticed this in my living situation. If I ever buy a house similar to the one I'm in now and I rent it out, I will put the rent at a place where I can reasonably afford it, and I will not raise it as long as you live there, as long as I can. Because it just doesn't make sense. My landlords don't raise the rent on me because I think part of it's because I'm a good tenant. Like, I just pay early every month or on time every month, and I don't really cause issues. But yeah, I mean, I would, the 3 to 4% is insane. I will say property taxes are a big thing for them. So I don't think it's always the vileness of it. I don't think it's just they're just like they just are greedy. I think part of it genuinely is they have higher costs, so they've got to pass those higher costs on to you as the customer.
Like how? Why?
We're here in Florida on vacation. We just got back from Publix. We were like blown away by the prices at Publix. I don't know, maybe, I don't know where other people are shopping at, but we thought the prices were so high compared to where we're from. Like the prices of a Starbucks instant coffee, like a little tiny thing was $13. On my last video
Yeah, but that's Starbucks.
that I did about grocery shopping, everyone said to go to Publix because it was more affordable. I don't know. I'm like, wow, we were like blown away. So we spent almost $300 for 4 or 5 days in Florida. We did get some nicer beer, obviously wine, some nice seafood to cook out tonight. But besides that, I mean, just in general, the prices were expensive. We're like,
Okay, you also are traveling, so a lot of the ancillary costs, like seasonings and stuff, you probably had to get, and then also things like butter and drinks and stuff like that. You probably, at your normal living situation, you probably have a lot of that stuff already, but you're having to buy extra of it because you're not at your normal place.
oh my gosh, how are people like feeding more than 1 or 2 kids here? I have to mention the pepper. The pepper my husband got was $4 for one pepper, not organic.
Could you use up to $750? Find it at BioLife. Up to $750 is waiting for you.
Where did she say she was shopping again? Was it Publix?
I'm in the drive-thru right now. You guys, I went to pick up lunch for my family, went to Carl's Jr., and I know Carl's Jr. is like one of the more expensive fast food places. I bought...
You know, I've never had Carl's Jr. my entire life. I've never had Hardee's either.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Meals, okay, meals. $70? A crime. That is a crime. 2 kids' meals. And
Yeah,
3
but you're able
adult
to
meals.
feed.
$70.
That is a lot of food, though. I mean, again, we're comparing this to the past, though, but, like, you still were able to feed your entire family. You're just paying for the convenience of you to not have to do any of the work to get that.
And 22 cents. In this economy?
But she still consented to it. She still paid for it.
I can't believe that. That is...
You say in this economy, but you still bought it. If it was that hard in this economy, don't buy it. Hello, Zayden.
Is literally gonna be what ruins my day today. Oh my gosh. Ridiculous. I cannot justify that, and I'm never coming back.
I'm just trying to figure out why
It's McDonald's again.
no one told me that a hash brown at McDonald's
Honestly,
is $3.
in this economy? No, I'm just kidding, Zayden. We got to get you some Carl's Jr. I drive by one every day. That's the thing. I've always wanted to try it, but I don't know what it it's burgers. I know that, but I wouldn't know what to order. And I just, it's the same thing with like Crystal. I love me some Crystals, but I don't want to go in. Like I want to go with somebody so I can experience it with somebody. So, I mean, if you're busy later, if you're not busy later, we could go get some Carl's Jr. in this economy.
I pre-ordered it, and then I was kind of like, why is this so much money? And I checked my receipt, and it's $3.19. That's not including tax. And it's not like it's a Burger King hash brown where they're those little tiny little balls of heaven. It's just a stick hash brown. Like literally, it looks like this. Like, do you think this is gonna even fill me up? It's probably not going to. And this is why I don't eat out. Yeah, McDonald's.
But you literally did eat out. This is what's getting me. Complaining about McDonald's is crazy. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, everyone on here is complaining about McDonald's. And I'm like, I'm just going to throw it out there. Domino's, $8.65, large pizza. It's like 1,500 to 2,000 calories. You don't mean that. Zayden, I have low latency mode on, so I don't know what I don't mean. But I'm down to go get some Carl's Jr. I will say I've got to meet Lauren's family here in like a few hours, so we got to make it quick. I am off Tuesday though. Well, I'll probably stream again, but we can order some Carl's Jr. and we can eat it on the stream if you want. But yeah, this is just to say I don't eat out, and you're literally eating out. You can say you don't like it. You can say it's annoying. I respect you for saying that. But the cost itself is the cost itself. There's nothing you can do to impact the cost other than stop buying it. Oh my gosh. How much was this?
I don't know.
How much you think it
have to do the math. These are like
She just brought me homemade, like it's a sandwich and a hash brown. Every time I go to McDonald's, I spend less than $8 because I can look at the prices. That's what I'm saying, though. The prices, like, it's on the menu. Like, I was at DQ. So, okay, Whataburger's right by my house, and we got DQ the other day because DQ is cheaper. Whataburger is like $15, and it's only for the burger, fries, and a normal drink. You're not that popular. No. I'm on normal latency, which means it's not instant. That's what I'm saying. Normal latency is where it's not instant and it's a better quality stream. But yeah, I just hold on. I gotta give this a bite. Can I have a napkin?
Oh, is it runny?
Uh-huh.
I tried to cook it more so it wouldn't be messy and roasty.
You failed.
No. No, my food. Oh my gosh.
This is now a mukbang stream. This is so cool, though. She made me just a whole sandwich. But yeah, like the cost of this sandwich, I'm guessing, like the hash browns I know I got from Walmart. It was like a 12-pack for, I want to say $6. So like I got the whole 12-pack. So that's 50 cents a hash brown. And all it took is just either like oven or microwave or toaster or whatever. And so you've got to consider that, is that like you're paying $2 or $3 for a hash brown. Can I have another one?
Another hash brown?
No, another
Oh.
napkin. But yeah, there's like a level of like, no. That's upsetting. Just threw that on the ground. That's so upsetting. But yeah, and so yeah, let's see. Hash brown is probably like 50 cents. English muffin I know is like 20 cents because I got it's $1.42 for 6. The egg is probably 50 cents. Slice of cheese, $7. No, I'm just kidding. The slice of cheese is probably like another 20 or 30 cents, and then some ham on there. Maybe butter and ancillary costs. Maybe this was like $2, all said and done. And it's a lot more food, too. Again, just looking at it, this is a lot more food than what I'd get at McDonald's. It tastes better. It's much more filling. And yeah, so we'll continue while I crunch.
Check your prices before you wreckety wreck yourself.
What would you pay for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota? Thank you all for your comments on that video because I feel a lot less crazy now. I mean, I think the overall consensus is that rent is ridiculous right now. For reference, I am living in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, so I know it's like a very hot spot to be right now, so I get that the market is high. However, it's a little crazy. Like, I am currently paying $16.56 for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and it's going up to about $17.20, something like that. I don't know why, but now that I'm in the 17s, I'm like, no. Like, that's where I draw the line. I can't. So I've been looking in St. Louis Park. There are options out there, but thank you all for your comments. I think I either need to find a man to live with or I need to find a man to pay for my apartment. It's tough being single and living on your own, but I also found my independence in living alone, and I really don't want to live with a roommate anymore.
I mean, there is something to be said about marriage does bring people out of poverty. I mean, it is one of the greatest wealth building tools, is marrying the right person and having a joint financial plan for your life. And that can change. That will always change. And like, you know, every year is going to be, you're going to change it in some way. But working to have that where it's the same goal together and you're building that together is going to make your life a lot more affordable because you're not fighting somebody who's dragging you down. If I'm, you know, and maybe you're a natural saver, maybe she's a natural spender, maybe vice versa. But if you both come together and you go, we want to buy a house in 5 years, or we want to have a 100K net worth, or we want to have zero debt, or we want to have whatever the goal is, if you can agree on that and hold each other accountable in a loving, respectful way, you can really build a powerful wealth in your future.
So, yeah. But thanks for your comments. The apartment hunt is on. It's happening.
There we go. So that was video number 1. I quite enjoyed it. We're going to move on to video number 2 now. It is open to Microsoft Edge. My computer went, you don't do that.
We just got the
All right. Let me bring this over here.
most recent inflation report. And so today I want to talk about that along with showing you guys and proving to you that wages have not been keeping up with inflation over the past 20 years and probably even longer than that. We're going to go back 20 years because at least that is pre-great financial crisis when things were sort of normal. But first, let's start off talking about the most recent inflation report because surprise, surprise, it is going up. Now they do say, well, the latest inflation report from June was right in line with expectations, you know, but it was still a jump in the wrong direction. Well, yeah, no kidding. Any inflation reading going up at this point is in the wrong direction, especially since we've been promised for about 3 years now that it's supposed to go down back to 2%. So the CPI went up to 2.7% year over year in June, which is up from the 2.4% reading in May, which means that inflation from May to June went up 0.3% month over month, which is also the fastest increase that we've seen in the past 5 months.
This is annoying. Because I don't know if these numbers are true. And he's not adding anything. And also his style of video is upsetting me for some reason. Because he's not looking. He's not looking at you. He's just walking.
Inflation is where they say it came in a little bit softer than anticipated. It came in at 2.9%, but they were expecting 3%. And remember, the core inflation is what the Fed looks at. That's the Fed's rate of saying, okay, this is the 2% that we've been looking for. Well, clearly they haven't gotten anywhere near that goal, considering it's still right at 2.9%, guys. And this inflation report also means that there's going to be zero chance that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates at their meeting later this month. It's not.
I mean, they might. I don't think they will, but I know that the president doesn't have Like, he can't tell the Federal Reserve what to do, but he has been pressuring Jerome Powell for it. So we will see.
Going to happen. And you know what's interesting is some people are blaming this on the tariffs, but this inflation reading is before most of the tariffs have even really gone into effect.
That is true. We've all been blaming inflation and tariffs, but most companies, even when most of these tariffs have taken effect, companies prepay for a lot of their product. We prepay for our product. So whatever cost we're at for our product, we're not actually buying it and then raising the cost. We don't push those costs onto our customers until those costs are pushed onto us.
So think about this. We're already seeing the inflation numbers move back up in the wrong direction before the tariffs take effect. So imagine what things are going to be like once they all actually go into full effect, if that were to happen. These inflation numbers are going to start spiking like you haven't seen since 2021. Now, what was the reason for this?
I don't like it when people make predictions. I've done it before, and I've kind of changed that, because making predictions on the market, you're probably going to be either partially wrong or entirely wrong. There's just no way to get around that. But I do think guessing is fine. Like, if you can guess and that it impacts your behavior in a positive way, that might be fine. Like, if you think things might get worse, so you dial it back before it gets worse to start putting more money away, that's fine. Like, I see no issue with that. The fear is where I kind of have an issue of, like, okay, did you just take everything out of retirement? Because there has to be a level of reason to it. But
this increase in inflation in June.
I really hate this video style. I have no idea who this guy is, but this whole video
Mainly
style
higher
is just walking.
food and energy costs. Wow. 2 out of the 3 essentials that people need. Food and energy. The only thing missing here is the shelter. There was also clothing and furniture inflation in June. We had services inflation. And once the tariffs take full effect, if they do, we can expect to see all of these inflation figures skyrocket in the second half of 2025. Now, on some things like furniture and apparel, the tariffs that are already in place right now are starting to slowly filter through to the core prices of these items, and the prices of these items did go up. And a lot of the experts say it's going to take months for the tariff data to start taking full effect on the inflation data. So let's assume all the tariffs do go into effect in August, like Trump is saying. Well, we probably aren't going to start seeing the true real impacts of that until the end of 2025, maybe even going into 2026. They'll start.
How old is this video? Okay, so it's 11 days. Who is this guy? That's what I want to know.
A little over a week ago.
This guy seems fun. Is this his whole videos? Is literally just him walking? That's fun. Well, as much fun, we're gonna keep listening to this, but it's just a lot of these videos are either just a mix of like inflation and like blaming all of it. Because just looking at the comments here, I worked for a debt collection agency years ago. I quit the day I had to call myself. That's funny. Millions of people living on Social Security can't keep up either. The living costs are a joke. I mean, yeah, but also, like, that's what literally like what this whole stream is. Yes, but also, yes, cost of living is increasing and it's going up at not a commensurate rate to income. But the decisions you're making, I can't control that. Like, I can't make the cost go down, but I can control what I spend my money on. I made $17 an hour in 2001. I make $17 an hour in 2025. Let that sink in. That's your fault. Yeah, that's just your fault. People can't pay their bills. 25% of drivers in Los Angeles have expired registration. Wow. I have no idea if that's true, but that's crazy. Which probably means they're driving without insurance. Yeah, I mean, insurance is definitely getting more expensive. I mean, it's going up. And yeah, inflation number. This is textbook Cantillon effect in action. Richard Cantillon observed in the 1700s that when new money enters the economy, the closest to the money printer benefits first, while the furthest always suffer the most. The Fed create trillions of dollars that went straight to the banks, corporations, and asset markets. By the time the money trickled down to wages, prices had already adjusted upward. This isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. Interesting. 150 in groceries in 2015, 270 today, no lie. I mean, wages have been falling behind inflation for over the last 50 years. Here's something that'll make your head spin. In 1987, my father made $35K as a park ranger. That $35K, according to 2 different inflation calculators, has the same buying power of almost $100,000 today. These are some interesting comments, to say the least.
Trickling into the numbers, but you won't see it really start to ramp up until about 6 months later. And this also reinforces the idea that the Fed will not be cutting rates anytime soon, or probably not at all this year, if things remain on the current track. Now check this out. Shelter prices went up 0.2% month over month in June, which was weaker than the 0.3% gain that we had in May. And the main reason why it didn't come in even stronger, hotel prices. Why is this included with housing? I have no idea, because that's temporary lodging. It's not even in the same category if you ask me, but this influenced it because the index for lodging away from home, which includes hotel prices, fell 2.9% month over month in June after declining 0.1% in May. So if it wasn't for that, we would have seen shelter prices rise substantially more. Food prices also went up 0.3% in June.
The sandwich was baller, if I do say so myself. I agree. It was very good. It was a 10 out of 10
which is the same increase that we saw in May of this year.
And worth it.
Grocery
It was like $2.
Prices rose 0.3% month over month. Prices for drinks, coffee, and produce were all up in June. Beef in particular was up 2% in just 1 month.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Beef went up. And I noticed that one. I felt that one because we eat a lot of ground beef, and it went up.
Egg prices, however, did decline by 7.4% month over month in June. So at least finally, the egg crisis epidemic is over. But the cost of dining out went up. It went up 0.4% month over month. It went up 0.3% in May.
About 22 days ago, I started using the Japanese Monjaro recipe, but I had to stop because I was losing weight way too fast.
And it went up 3.8% year over year. So it is getting more expensive to eat. It is getting more expensive to have a place to live. It is getting more expensive to put gas in your car. All of the things that everyone actually needs. It's getting more expensive to buy clothes. None of the important stuff is going down, guys. Having privacy these days, especially online privacy, is becoming an increasingly rare phenomenon, which is why today's video is sponsored by...
They don't pay me.
I want to talk about, which is wages not keeping up with inflation. And I want to prove to you guys with some charts and some historical data that wages are not keeping up with inflation, regardless of what the Fed, the federal government, or any of your local congressmen fraudsters tell you. It's not. I'm pretty sure most people intuitively know this just by looking at their financials today. Because unless you're somebody that owned some assets prior to the pandemic, you are probably now more broke than ever. If you owned assets prior to the pandemic, you were able to realize all of those gains in gold and silver, the stock market, housing prices, everything, Bitcoin. If you were lucky enough to own all 4, you're practically rich right now if you owned it before the pandemic. Everyone else who didn't own these assets before the pandemic is suffering right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is something to be said is, you know, you have the incumbents that are saying, you know, I want to keep all the money. I want to keep all, like, but there's also a part of this of, even if it is harder to get into the market, are you trying to get into the market? Because what's going to happen is if you don't get in today, in 10 years, we're going to be having the same conversation. It's just going to be Bitcoins at $250,000. and the S&P 500's at $12,000 a share instead of 6 or 5 or whatever it's at right now. And so that's where, and the same thing is going to be said of, like, you could say right now it's $5K to get into the S&P 500 when 20 years ago it was maybe $3K or $2K. So, like, yes, if the market is going up and you're making more money in the market, of course it's going to be more expensive to get into said market, and you have to overcome that living situation. It's unfair, but what really are your options here? We can vote on whoever we want to vote on, but at the end of the day, taking the accountability and saying, I am going to invest in my future, and I'm going to start right now, even if it's not as much as I'd like, I'm starting today.
But first, let's define the basics here. Inflation measures how much prices go up over time, and wages are what people earn. And if wages don't rise as fast as inflation, workers lose purchasing power, meaning their money doesn't go so far anymore. Sure, everyone can relate to that one now. Here's how wages and prices have stacked up since 2005. Let's go back 20 years from now. Overall, and we're going by the official government figures here, we know that the inflation numbers are much higher, so keep that in mind when we talk about inflation here. But overall inflation has increased by about 64% in the last 20 years, according to the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. Those are the inflation figures we just went over, as well as the core inflation figures. But average hourly earnings for all private sector workers rose only about 53% over that same 20-year time frame. So even though paychecks are bigger in terms of dollars, they don't buy as much as they used to, and that can be illustrated by the chart on the screen. The red line is inflation growth, and the blue line is wage growth over the same 20-year time frame. And as you can see, the longer we go up this chart, the further away these two lines start to separate, which means inflation is becoming a bigger and more exponential problem as the years go by. And the problem is we have stagnant real wages, because when we adjust for inflation, the picture looks even worse. Between 2005 and early 2020, real wages barely grew at all for many workers, and then the pandemic briefly boosted wages, but inflation quickly wiped out most of those gains, which brings us to today, where the real wages for many lower and middle class income workers are now lower than they were in 2019.
I don't know. I mean, yes, I trust his figures because of the CPI, but I don't know. This is just one of those things where it's like, yes, the cost of everything is going higher and higher, but how are you living your life in accordance to that? Because you can only control your house. You can only control you. And so, yeah, I think everything's getting more and more and more expensive, but you know, maybe you drive a cheaper car to commensurate it, or maybe you eat cheaper groceries, or you eat different kinds of groceries. For us, that's something we did is ground beef, as I said, went up from like $4.90 to $6.33. And that was specifically due to some of the growth in the past few months. And we're eating less ground beef now. We've started buying chickens and just cooking them up either in the crock pot or whatever. We've started eating. It's hard for. I don't like turkey, but we're working on it. We've done a little bit more deli meat and like freezer type meat. Like we buy sausage patties and like deli ham. We'll use that on breakfast sandwiches, or we just cut out the meat entirely. If we can't find a good substitute, for example, pasta. I love meat sauce, like red meat sauce, but I just take out the meat and we'll just have the sauce without it. And we'll have the pasta, and it's an adjustment, but it's also, it makes a meal for the two of us $6.50 less. And so it, instead of being an $8 meal between the two of us, it's now like a $3 meal or a $2 meal, because it's just pasta, water, and sauce. That's it. So your actions in correlation to it are, I think, what's important.
Even though people's paychecks are much larger today, 5 years after the pandemic, it is still smaller in terms of purchasing power, which is the real problem. This is the thing that everybody needs to understand.
Invest. That makes up the difference.
And about inflation.
To an
Regardless of how much money you have, the only thing that truly matters is how many products, services, and goods can that money really buy? And this is why I have told people repeatedly on this channel, pretty much since the inception of my YouTube videos, that you should own gold and silver. But this puts people...
Brother, I don't know if I want to watch this video anymore. This is literally just like... So he's saying you should literally own gold and silver. Whatever.
People in a situation now where people have to work harder and longer for paychecks that don't go as far. And there are some job fields that have suffered the most, like service workers, for
I mean, we could start raising chickens. I'd be okay with it.
For example, like restaurant staff, retail, hospitality, low-wage healthcare jobs, transportation and warehouse workers, teachers and public employees whose pay hasn't kept up with the local pace of housing. And meanwhile, higher paid jobs in tech or finance have seen bigger raises.
No, Zayden. No.
Increasing the gap between the low and the high earners. Of course, a lot of people in those tech and finance jobs today are being laid off and losing their jobs. So why aren't the wages keeping up with inflation? Well, a lot of employers don't want to pay any more than they have to. They keep wage increases just high enough to keep people around, but low enough so it doesn't impact the company's profit margins too much. Also, union membership has declined dramatically, which has weakened workers' bargaining power over the years. There's also global competition, outsourcing that put downward...
I've considered making videos on silver and gold because it's not... I don't know. I can't get myself to... I think eventually, if my portfolio gets big enough, I will probably buy some silver and gold. But I already got my shovel. But it's just a level of like... Why are you buying gold? Because most things that I purchase in my investment strategy give me a return despite whether I sell it or not. Gold is one of those things where like I can live off the gains of my investments. I can live off of without selling the principal. I can live off the interest. I can't do that with gold. In order to get the money out of gold, I have to sell the gold. And also, if we go back and the dollar falls off, which is something people have tried to convince me of for years now, I don't believe we would go to gold. I just fundamentally do not believe it. Because if we fall off the dollar, there's a lot bigger problems, and we're either going to go to bartering with goods and services, or we're going to go to something a little more extreme, or we'll go to a different currency, the yen or something like that. Like we're going to go to something else instead of the dollar. But I don't think it's going to be a weird world before we go to gold.
Pressure on wages, and now we have AI.
I also think most people on YouTube that tell you to buy gold are telling you to use their link in the description to buy gold.
To contend with as well. And here's the reality of what many Americans are facing today. Groceries are up officially, right, over 30% since 2019. But I think most people would argue that grocery prices are up anywhere between...
Let me see real quick. If not gold and silver. No, I'm not doing that. No. That's why you need both. What do you... No. What? That's why you need both.
50 and 100%, depending on which items we're talking about and where you live. That's been my own personal experience as well. Rents have surged anywhere between 25 and 40% in many cities across the country. You have used car prices, insurance, and utilities all higher than they used to be. And homeownership...
Who let you have a money and finance channel? Bro. I'ma just...
is completely out of reach for the vast majority of the population right now, because people would have to spend about 45% of their income to afford the median price home today, which is beyond the debt-to-income ratios that most lenders will allow.
That is true. I'll give them that. Well, I don't have to give it to him. He's right. That is true. The cost to own a home is so astronomically high now compared to the wages that if you are a first-time home buyer, getting into that home is incredibly difficult. I would say, again, we can't change that. Like, as individuals, we cannot change that, but we can change our actions in accordance to that information. If that is something, if the goal is to own a home, you can change that, but specifically buy gold and also use my link. But if you want to be able to afford a home, you need gold. I'm kidding. But yeah, I do think that in this given situation, yeah, he's right. I mean, housing costs are just getting so astronomically high. It's insane. It's just not comparable to what we need. And most fields are going to be affected by the wage stagnation.
Which simply put means that most people cannot afford to buy a house.
That's why your ears won't.
Ew. Why would they make that an ad? You'll hear it in a second. It immediately just started like screech. Oh my God, I hated that.
This chart right here illustrates pretty good how much more money you have to spend today to basically buy this.
Yeah. No, I can't argue with this. This is bad. like in order to spend what $1,000 bought in 2005 versus 2025. I would want to know, how does coastal cities and how does, big cities, how does that play into a place like that, like a thing like this? But
same items, okay?
Yeah, I mean, groceries is getting worse, rent is getting worse, grass. Did you hear it? Yeah. It's awful. Gas is getting worse, utilities is bad, health insurance. If you don't get a home, you at least need some land to bury the gold. I can't even argue with that. Like, there's logic there. Sure, you're right. You at least need to get some land to bury the gold. Bury doesn't have 2 R's, Zayden. Also, Lauren, Barry doesn't have 2 R's.
My bad.
Y'all are smart. Yeah, no, it's this level of.
It's okay. Zayden can't pronounce it, so.
It's the level of, like, me personally, and I want to make more videos on it. I just want to be more educated before I make the videos on it. But from what I can see, in my opinion, buying homes today, if you're a first-time home buyer, you have to have a lot of financial discipline to even afford it, and there has to be the right situation. Right now, rates are too high for me to want to buy a home. The down payment I'd want to put down, I'm not there yet. I'd want to put down the 20% personally. I want to be in a home situation where I've saved up the cash, I can set it on the table, and I immediately have that equity position. I also want to buy less home than I can afford, and that means I got to put in some work on the income side. My income at this point, I would only be able to afford about a $200,000 house only. But that $200,000 house is just not a place I want to live. So what do? I cut down on my lifestyle now, and I cut back in certain areas to where I'm saving about 30 to 40% of my income every single month. And right now I'm focusing on retirement specifically because I have no need for a house at the moment. But I'm focusing on that because there's a lot more growth on the back end from doing that. But then as well, if the goal then becomes buying a house, when I'm 30 to 40, the goal is going to be at an interest rate with enough down payment that it's reasonable in an area I plan to live in for 10 years, at least. And I will be making consistently monthly payments comfortably, and life will reflect that. I think another thing to consider is the actual phantom cost of owning a home. Covering utilities, covering furnishing the home. You're going to probably, if you live there long enough, you're going to end up replacing everything at least once. AC, water heater, that kind of stuff. And those are big costs. And so what I've noticed is whatever your house payment would be, just add 50%. Just immediately. Because that's what's going to cost monthly to just keep that home running. And the bigger the home, maybe you need to start looking at more. Barry doesn't have 2 R's, says the guy who doesn't own any gold. That's all right. How do you know I don't own any gold? Maybe I do. Maybe Lauren's ring is gold. We own that.
$50 worth of groceries is now $200 today. That's probably a way underestimate. $500 in rent is more like $750 today. Gas, $100 before is more like $150 now. Utilities has seen the smallest increase, depending on the utility. Health insurance, though, went from like $180 to $300 just for the same amount of insurance.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, the health insurance side of this, health insurance costs. I want to make a video, but I also, this was something I studied in high school, in my senior thesis class. I wrote a senior thesis paper on this. Is health insurance costs are so astronomically high. It's honestly to the point that the smartest people in the world said, in order to fix it, you have to turn it off. Like, just stop having healthcare and start over. Because there is no fixing it at this point. The cost is too high. And so health insurance for us, Lauren has health insurance. I don't, because I can't afford it. And I like, in my decisions, I can either have health insurance or I can pay an extreme amount of money and fall further and further behind. So I'm trying to take care of myself as much as possible. I power through being sick and being, if it's ever bad. I mean, we're in a country where if it's ever too bad, they can't turn you away. But there's a level of I just don't go to the doctor. I just don't do, because I can't afford it at this point. There's a level of considering it. And I'm consciously choosing that. I will say, now that I'm having a kid, I'm going back, and I probably will change this. Starting in 2026, I will probably get some form of health insurance. And I'm just going to have to tank that as a cost, and it'll be annoying, but I will just do it because that is the decision I'm making with the information I have and the income I'm in. Don't worry when the market crashes, I'll throw you a few shekels, you lowly peasant boy. I just said that on camera. Anyway.
And yet, with all of this going on, economists are willing to tell people the bold-faced lie that wage growth is finally outpacing inflation in 2025. But the gaps from all the previous years and months when it hasn't has never been closed. So even if there's a few months here and there that they can point to and say, well, look, in April of 2025, wage growth outpaced inflation growth. Well, that's just dandy. What about the last 20 years, dude? That's what I got to say. So these small raises that people are getting these days is just nowhere near.
I wonder if that GeoGuessr guy could find this man. Because, like, he's walking by, like, apartment signs, cars, landscape. I'm guessing this is Florida. I'm guessing.
Enough to keep up with inflation. And it's really sad, the predicament that it's putting a lot of American households in right now. A lot of people are honest, hardworking folks who now have to work, more than one full-time job in some cases, or have to do gig work on the side. And they're sitting there wondering why they're still broke. This is why. It's because your government, the American government, has cheated you and has fooled you into believing that your raise is actually worth something, when in fact it's more worthless than.
Yeah, and that's partly why, if you have a job, you need to switch jobs every 2 to 3 years. I remember very early on when I was still a teenager, it was, back in my day. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, when I was a teenager, I switched jobs every 3 to 6 months. And I got labeled as, he's job hopping, he's not staying at one place. And that was because every single time I switched, my income went up. Typically 50 cents to $1. And maybe it added, a few more hours to my thing. And, but I went from like $9 an hour to like 14 in the span of 2 years. Just because, like, by the time I was 19, I just kept switching and switching and switching. Because finding those jobs ended up pushing me further and further. I also wanted to meet people in the fields I wanted to be in. So, like, I started at a job at 14. I became the manager. I kept moving that up. And now that I'm in a position of skill, a position of, a management where that experience is more valued and the money matches that as best as it can, then actually sitting there and going, okay, I can stay a manager for a few years instead of a few decades or like a few months. Because I think there is something to be said about staying in a role without a promotion. And I'll say it this way. I look at resumes when I hire people, And I saw a guy who had worked at Cracker Barrel as a dishwasher for 7 years. And I interviewed him, and I could immediately tell why. He had no initiative. He had no get up and try to do anything, no innovation, no oomph. There's no it factor to him. There's no I want this, and I will go out, I will kill something, and I will drag it home. And each day I'm going to try to kill something bigger so my family can eat better. So there's just a level of like, why were you at Cracker Barrel? Which I'm not, hating on a job like that. I was a dishwasher for a very long time. I actually really enjoyed it. But to be in that position for 7 years shows me you're not taking initiative. You're not doing that. And then now you're also coming over here. Are you just going to stay in a lowly job just the whole time? Or are you going to take the initiative to actually build yourself up both financially and as a skill? And so that's where I think if you're getting a 3% raise, I've gotten given 2 raises in my life that wasn't a promotion, and it was just a 3% raise. And I remember my boss at the time was like hyping it up as this is the best I can do, but I want to have equity share for you. I want to have do that. And I remember just sitting there. I mean, she had paid for our lunch, so I was fine with it. But I was just sitting there like, shut up. Like, you're lying. You're either lying, or if you are telling the truth, you don't see how misguided that is. You're making like 10 times what I make. And you're telling me that 3% when inflation that year was 4%. You're telling me that that's 4 or 5%. You're telling me that I should be grateful for the 3. While I can be grateful for the more money, the way I returned the favor was I started applying to new jobs. Because I cannot sit here and wait on you to correct that. I have to take the initiative and leave. And there is something to be said if you typically do get, I think in that specific situation, I got whatever, a 30 or 20 or 30% pay bump from just switching jobs laterally. I didn't go up in status. I just got the same job, just at a different place. And now I make about 30% more. So there's something to be said about that, is that are you staying stagnant, or are you focusing on upping your career? And the higher up you get on the income scale, I know that it takes longer. So maybe it's just a couple lateral moves, you get promoted, and then you do a few more lateral moves, while at the same time, maybe you're building something up on the side. But yeah, there's just something to consider here of, are you actually building yourself up, or are you blaming the fact that inflation and all this stuff, and now you're getting a 3% raise, so you actually still only have the same amount or even less buying power? What are you going to do about it? What's the information you're going to use to your advantage?
Ever. And if you're lucky enough to still have a job these days, say you work at Starbucks corporate, well, they just changed the rules on everybody and said starting in September, you're going to have to come into the office not 3 days a week, but 4 days a week. Yet another company rolling back the work from home stuff. Pretty much just 1 day a week you're going to be allowed to work from home moving forward. Check this out. We got Thanksgiving dinner crossing the road. That's a lot of them.
That's funny.
There's more of them over here. Turkey, turkey. So this new Starbucks in the office mandate applies to their Seattle and Toronto offices, as well as all of their regional offices in North America, but it doesn't apply to the UK offices. So I guess people in the UK are still going to be able to get away with murder a little while longer. And this is a big deal because Starbucks has 16,000 corporate employees worldwide. So a lot of people are going to be affected by this. And Starbucks has seen a lot of trouble these days, especially when they stopped allowing people to walk in and use the bathroom without making a purchase. So they're yet another company that's trying to recover from a poor public image right now. And so a lot of these people end up quitting their job because they're like, I'm not going to go back into the office 4 days a week. But then they...
Yeah, but I mean... Yeah, I mean, if you want to work from home, build a business where that gives you the freedom to do that. I think if you're expecting a company to allow you to do that, you might be asking for too much, because I think there is something to be said about the value of going out, killing something, and dragging it home. Can I say killing on YouTube? Ending, de-lifing. What's the thing that they say? What's the thing that they say on TikTok when they're trying to like unalive? Yeah. De-lifing. Yeah, I like that one. But I mean, there is just something to be said about it. And if all you're doing is computer, using a mouse wiggler, are you really providing anything that is worth being at home?
Find out that they can't get another job without some serious struggles, especially if you had a management or middle management job. Because right now, a lot of the job cuts and layoffs are actually targeting middle managers.
Yeah. And I can say from personal experience, I'm at a position right now, and I'm preparing to be in this position of if I do get let go. Because it's always, I mean, we just got bought out. There's always that possibility in the expense of everything. There's always the possibility I don't know how to say that. Unalysing. Anyway. Oh, no. Did you misspell unaliving? Yeah, so there's just a level of for me, I'm expecting to be in that situation at some point. Not because I'm a bad manager, not because I don't care about my job, but because, yeah, I mean, I would fire the manager too if I was disconnected from the business and I look down and I see one person is making 50% more than all the other people. Fire that guy and promote somebody below him to be, 20% of his original cost. It would make sense. And so for me, I've noticed I want to get to a position where the business is making more money. I want to take that seriously. I want to build this YouTube up as best I can to get this to where it can make some money. And then just keep my resume updated, keep throwing money and to the side for a rainy day. Understand that there is going to be times I might need it. And if you spend all of your money in a situation where it's just, I make 4K, I spend 4K, it will catch up to you. But if I if I make 4K and I spend 2.5K and I set the other 1.5 aside for the future, if I do that every month, eventually I will have enough that I can weather most storms.
Which is cutting the fat. It's getting rid of the middlemen, literally. From May of 2022 to May of 2025, manager positions are down 6.1%, and executive level roles are also down 4.6%. You have big companies that are cutting managers right now, like Estee Lauder and Match. They cut 20% of their managers. UPS, Citigroup, Amazon, Google, they're also shrinking their middle management teams. And now a lot of these laid off middle managers are competing for fewer jobs out in the real world today. These people are finding high competition, ghosting from employers, and jobs requiring extensive experience but offering lower pay, kind of like what we just talked about. And part of the problem is a lot of these middle managers have identical resumes. Employers sometimes don't even show up to interviews, so they're really disrespecting people and their time. And a lot of people are now forced into a situation where they have to take lower titles and lower...
Yeah, I mean, if that were to happen to me as middle management, I would probably focus for, I have the money. I would set aside time and I'd give myself a month, I think is what I'd do. I would allow myself to dig into my savings and whatever I've set aside as that emergency fund. I'd give myself a month and I would do a full-time job every single day. I'm applying, I'm walking into businesses, I'm calling people, I'm finding stuff on LinkedIn. I'm applying for whatever job I can. I'm doing interviews, whatever I can. And while I would be applying with a focus on management on any field, I would understand that if after the month the only things I had been offered were lower jobs, either lower positions, lower pay, stuff like that, I would take the best out of them and I would continue to apply on the short term, but I would adjust my lifestyle to reflect the new situation. And then I would fight to get back in that new spot. Because, yeah, I mean, we have 400 car washes at our business. So there's only 400 site managers across the country. So I have to wait for a spot to open up before I can get a new one. And it's the same way across every company. It's just, I have to wait for it. And so maybe I have to take an assistant manager role before I can do it. Or maybe I have to take, a shift lead role before I can move back up into where I want to be. But I also can understand the fighting for it. I don't think I'm entitled to my role. I don't think I'm entitled to the position that I have.
Lower pay just to get a new job. about 22% of managers right now are accepting a pay cut, and 32% of managers are moving to individual contributor roles and taking pay cuts. So if you want to keep a job, this is kind of the situation you're in right now. And some managers who still are lucky enough to have a job are worried that they're going to be the next up on the chopping block, and that is
I can agree. I am worried about that.
a legitimate concern right now. So a lot of people are proactively hunting for a job right now while they're still employed.
Why did Amazon send me $20,000? Because I use Amazon AI.
I really don't care.
And of course, anybody who's heard me talk about the job market lately, the hiring process right now is an absolute mess, especially with AI. You know, people can use AI programs to apply to hundreds, if not thousands of different jobs. And at the same token, employers are using AI to sift through those thousands of different applications, most of them never even being read by a human and never being considered by a human, leading to a situation where most people are just slipping through the cracks these days. Because of all the fake job postings, because of all of the fake bots that are applying for real jobs.
Yeah, I mean, that is something we actually have. I don't control it. I don't do the job listings. But at my company, we have a round-the-clock part-time job listing on Indeed. And you can just find it. And it's just constantly, it's just always up. And so I get people weekly coming in asking me if there's a job available. You know, I have a team of 7 people. That's who I manage. I manage a team of 7 or 6 or 7 people. On like normally, a few people might rotate in and out as they promote, move, transfer, quit, fired, whatever it might be. So, but we still end up with hundreds of people a month just coming in or calling, asking if they can get an interview for the position that they applied for, even though everyone keeps applying for it, even though we don't actually have an open spot for them.
It is just an absolute mess out there right now. I think what all these companies should do in order to resolve this issue is everybody needs to go back to going in person and handing in a handwritten resume in person, not even typed, handwritten. And the reason it needs to be handwritten is because then you can't use AI, or you could, but you would still have to copy things down yourself and write it down.
That's way too much of a step back. I get the walking in and meeting the boss and shaking their hand and making a first impression. I understand that, but no. What do you mean handwritten? I don't handwrite things
yourself,
ever.
Which would greatly reduce the amount of people out there applying for jobs who are not really looking for a job, and it would eliminate all of the bot applications because it needs to be a real person coming in and actually applying for.
Yeah, but what's also the cost associated with that? Is if I have to literally, if I say the only way you get a job here is you hand me a resume and we'll call you, I'm leaving so much top talent out there. Like as a business, I'm leaving the best people who are just fighting for every role. They would have to hunt me out, and there just has to be a disproportionate amount of people doing that.
The job. And of course, a lot of the middle managers who are losing their jobs right now are warning of why this could be a bad thing for businesses. They say that managers connect workers to leadership and the mission of the company, and without them, morale and engagement drop, which might be true depending on the company and the.
I don't know. Maybe it's just my specific industry. I don't really fight for morale or engagement in the company. That might just be the company not wanting me to. Like, there's not really, the mission is clean car, but part of what I'm focusing on is revenue. Turn your actions into more money, and if you do that, I can in turn give you more money. We're turning it around, and we're working on it. But I have a history of making irredeemable sites profitable, and it's not fully because of me; it's because of my team. But there has to be somebody at the helm who's saying, "This is what we're going to do today, even if we don't want to." There has to be someone that has the final say of go clean the vacuums because our customers come in and they value that, and that's how we get returning business. Or, you know, we're going to open up an hour early today, or we're going to fix that after hours, and we're going to stay open, and we're just going to stay later and tank the labor costs so we can provide a better service for our customers. there just has to be somebody at the helm. But
culture. Middle managers also mentor employees. They also
True.
act as a gut check between executives and junior staff. Essentially, they say that middle managers humanize leadership and connect strategy to people. And with
True.
AI
I mean,
and
that's
all
one
the
thing I focused on is that if somebody's asking for time off, or they need to change in their shift, or they need hours, or they need to leave early for a doctor's appointment or pick up their kid or something, I try to bridge the gap of, technically, on the policy of the corporate company, none of that is acceptable. But as a human being, all of that is acceptable to me. I will work an hour longer so that you can be with your family, because I know there will be a time I need you to work an hour longer. And if I treat you with respect, I believe you will treat me with respect. I don't believe in barking orders down a tree.
automation going on, you're seeing companies that are cutting staff even
Unless it's at Zayden.
when things are
I do that in the company.
profitable. Even companies
just
that are doing good right now are able to let more people go due to all of the automation that's going on. In fact, 41% of employers plan to downsize with the help of AI by 2030. And some professionals fear that replacing middle managers with AI is a mistake, and it's going to lead to more problems than it solves in the end, which I think is definitely a possibility. That part I do agree with, because letting AI just kind of take over and run things without anybody checking its work is a dangerous place to be in, guys. Here's one guy who said he applied for 750 jobs over the past 2 years, and he said there's movement out there, but it's hard to get noticed. And so what he started doing is freelancing instead and consulting in order just to stay afloat, basically gigging for himself. And a lot of people, though, once they start doing that, they realize that it presents a lot of good opportunities, because now you're kind of working for yourself, you're working your own hours, taking the opportunities that you want to take and kind of brushing off the ones that you don't.
Dude, there's just a kid. What? There's just a kid standing behind the car looking at him.
And it can actually be a blessing in disguise for some.
Okay, there's the parent.
And these layoffs are 100% real, guys. In fact, just today, Intel announced that they are going to be slashing an additional 440 more jobs right here in the Bay Area in California, in Santa Clara, right where I saw the Metallica concert a few weeks back. And these are high-paid individuals, sometimes middle managers, that no longer have a job and are going to be in this exact situation that I just described. And you know what the icing on the cake is for all of this? Well, from time to time, one of my subscribers, Alan, who works for a debt collection agency, he'll write me an update on what's going on out there in the world of debt collection. And guess what? It is busier than ever right now. Here's what he told me. The law firm that I work for has now added 20 new collectors in India just to handle the phone calls. From a collector on the phone point of view, that's about a 1/3 more collection staff just dedicated to calls, plus all the other support staff that they added in the past, because I have kind of talked about this story intermittently as he's written me updates over the past couple years. And every time he writes me, he says that we just expanded office space. We're looking for new people. We have so much work coming in, we don't even have enough people for that work. So if you're somebody who just lost a job.
Yeah, and I mean, that's America. We just keep taking on debt after debt after debt. It's
debt
insane.
collection's where it's at right now, guys. That shows you the state of the economy, right?
I mean, I have thought, in order to become a billionaire, I have thought I could loan money out at an immoral interest rate, and then just, I'm relentless, so I will just hound you to pay me back. And I bet I can make a good living off of that.
Right there. People are losing jobs left and right, but the debt collection business is booming more than ever. He said that some of our clients are really pushing us to get 6,000 lawsuits a month, plus wage garnishments, and we are swamped with no signs of things slowing down. And I tell you this for two reasons. One, to warn you, if you are in debt and you think you're just going to get away without paying, these debt collectors are going to come after you and in some case even garnish your wages. So don't think you're going to get out of it, especially with the student loan debt. And number two, if you need a job, this is a great place to look, guys. I know it might not be the thing that you want to do. It might not be your dream job, working for a debt collection agency, but you have to follow the money. And it's also proof that even in a bad economy like right now, where a lot of people are in financial trouble, there is still opportunity. And the opportunity is in collecting the debt that people are refusing to pay. So I hope you learned something from this video. I really worked hard on it to try to put together the...
Well, that was the video. Like, I don't know who this guy is, but he's an interesting feller. That honestly was that's interesting. I mean, it's all the things he's talking about with the cost of everything and everything going on. I find it interesting. I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below when this becomes a VOD, and also just in the chat of what are things you're noticing in terms of the cost. What are you noticing is going up? What are you noticing is getting more and more expensive as time goes on? Let's see. But just, yeah, overall, what are y'all's thoughts on this situation? Everything just feels so expensive in 2025. But I think the biggest factor of this is just going to be focusing on what can you do with your money in your situation, in your actions, based on the situation around you. Because how you handle what's happening to you, the information you have, and how you and how you react to that, how you interpret that, I think is really how you're going to make that's how you're going to make this. That's how you're going to make it through, is you're going to fight, you're going to push through, and we're going to get better at this. So yeah, guys, I think I'm going to end the stream about here. I'll probably do more of these. Again, as I've been saying, I've been really, really enjoying talking about this kind of stuff. But to just kind of sum up this stream, why does it feel bad right now? You know, rent, food, utilities, childcare, healthcare, gas, it's all rising. Wages haven't caught up in years. And debt, like student loans and credit cards, which we didn't really touch on, but I will probably touch on in another stream, eats at any progress. I did touch on car payments and stuff like that. Just debt and utilities and healthcare and childcare, all the prices are going up with the income not keeping up with it. And then what it's doing to people, it's delaying adulthood, which I really want to do a stream on that, on how Gen Z is still living at home well into their 20s and 30s. The mental burnout of constantly working just to stay afloat, multiple jobs for an insane amount of hours. People avoiding starting a family due to cost. I know that's been a very big thing, is people have considered, and people have even told me, I can't believe you're having a kid, given the cost of everything and the economy that we're in based on your age and your income. And then quitting dreams. People they can't afford to start a business. They can't take off time from work. They can't, that's what it's doing to people. It's allowing them, they can't take vacations. They can't set anything aside for the future. And so what can we even do about it? It feels hopeless, but budgeting, that's how you're going to get through. You have to know what's coming in and where it's going and how it's going out, and then follow the discipline of it, or else it's going to leave just as fast as it came. Side hustles that you can scale, whether it's content. For us, we do micro markets, but whatever it is, if you can find something that you can build up, you're going to have to stop looking at the clock on this. It's just kind of how the world is. But shared housing, moving to a lower cost area, getting married, getting in a roommate situation, moving somewhere that's a little cheaper. And then yeah, just let me know what are y'all's biggest financial stresses right now. Let me know in the comments. Where are you seeing the biggest price jumps? Has anyone figured out good hustles or cost cutting moves recently? So just let me know in the comments down below,